There's one behavior, one very specific thing a man does, that reveals whether he actually sees a future with you, long before he ever says it out loud. It's not a grand declaration. It's not a promise ring or a dramatic conversation about where this is going. It's something much quieter and much harder to fake. Most women miss it because they're looking for words when they should be watching for something else entirely. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that one thing is, and once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Stay with me, because this one might change how you read your entire relationship. Before we get to the big reveal, let's talk about why this matters. A lot of women spend months, sometimes years, trying to decode whether a man is serious about them. They analyze his texts. They overanalyze his tone. They wait for him to say the words, "I see a future with you," as if that sentence alone is proof of commitment. But here's the problem. Words are the easiest thing in the world to say, and the easiest thing in the world to not mean. Psychologists who study commitment and relationship behavior consistently find the same thing. Real commitment shows up in structural changes to someone's life, not in verbal promises. In other words, you don't find out if he sees a future with you by listening closely. You find out by watching what he does with the actual architecture of his life, his time, his people, his plans. And there's one specific shift that reveals this more clearly than almost anything else. Let's build up to it. To understand the big sign, you first have to understand what the absence of it looks like. When a man is only casually interested, his life stays completely separate from yours. You exist in a contained space, maybe a few nights a week, maybe just texting, maybe just the version of him that shows up when it's convenient. He doesn't introduce inconvenience into his life for you. He doesn't rearrange anything. You simply get access to whatever time was already free. This isn't necessarily malicious. Sometimes it's just where he's at, not ready, not sure, keeping things open. But here's the psychological reality. When someone doesn't see a future with you, they subconsciously protect the rest of their life from you. Their friends stay separate. Their family stays separate. Their long-term plans stay separate. You remain, essentially, a compartment present but contained. This is why so many women feel confused in situationships. The affection can feel real, the chemistry can feel real, and yet something feels incomplete. That feeling isn't imagined. It's usually the accurate perception that you haven't been let into the actual structure of his life, only a slice of his time. So what does the opposite look like? What changes when a man does start to see a future? Here it is. A man who sees a future with you starts merging his world with yours deliberately, and often before he consciously realizes he's doing it. This shows up in a very specific, recognizable pattern. He begins introducing you into the parts of his life that used to be separate from romance entirely. His friend group, his family, his routines, his long-term plans, even mundane ones like where he wants to live or what his year looks like. This is the sign because, unlike words, this costs him something. Introducing you to people who matter to him means risking their opinions, their judgment, their questions. Bringing you into long-term plans means acknowledging, at least to himself, that you're not temporary. A man doesn't do this by accident, and he doesn't do it for someone he views as short-term. Let's break this into what it actually looks like day to day, because it's rarely one big dramatic moment. It's a series of small integrations. He starts mentioning you naturally to people in his life, not as a big announcement, but casually, the way you'd mention someone who's already assumed to be part of your world. "Oh yeah, I was with your name that day." No big introduction needed because in his mind, you already belong there. He includes you in plans that are months away, not because he's trying to lock you down, but because when he pictures that future moment, you're simply already in the picture. A wedding next spring, a trip he's been wanting to take, a holiday with his family. If your presence in those plans feels assumed, not negotiated, that's significant. He starts factoring you into decisions that used to be entirely his own, where he might live, how he manages his finances, what his week looks like. Not because you're controlling those decisions, but because he's no longer just planning his life. He's planning a life that includes you. And maybe most tellingly, he lets you see the unfiltered version of those relationships. How he actually is with his friends, how he actually is with his family, not a curated version. Because letting you into the real texture of his life, not just a performance of it, only happens when he's not worried about you being temporary. This is the sign that matters more than any sentence he could say. Words describe intention. This kind of integration reveals it. Here's why psychologists consider this kind of behavioral integration far more reliable than verbal declarations of commitment. Saying, "I see a future with you," costs nothing in the moment. It feels good to say, and it feels good to hear, but it requires no actual restructuring of someone's life. Merging your world with someone else's is different. It requires ongoing effort, vulnerability, and a willingness to let people who matter to him form opinions about you and about the relationship. This is also why the absence of this sign matters just as much as its presence. If a relationship has gone on for a significant amount of time and your life, and his life still feel like two separate tracks that only occasionally intersect, that's information too, not proof that he doesn't care, but a signal worth paying attention to. The goal isn't to interrogate every small moment looking for proof. It's to notice the overall direction. Is his life slowly opening up to include you more, or does it feel like you're still existing in a separate, contained space, no matter how much time passes? If this gave you a clearer way to read your relationship, that's exactly why this channel exists. We explore the hidden psychology behind love, attraction, and human behavior, the patterns that are true, but rarely explained clearly. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we release new psychology and relationship insights every week. And I'd love to hear from you. Has this happened in your relationship? Drop a comment and let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.